Hey guys, recently I watched No Time to Die, and this is going to be a video full of spoilers, but I wanted to talk about where you could take the series after No Time to Die. So if you haven't seen it yet, I would recommend watching it first before seeing this video. So I wanted to talk about 5 ways that the film series could continue on after No Time to Die, which saw, well, our main character James Bond dying at the end. So recasting Bond and continuing in this continuity would be kind of a hard option, at least in terms of continuing the James Bond story. So the first way I see they could continue the series is by following Nomi or the new 007, and then maybe have some elements of like Madeline in the series, and you could kind of continue on from the James Bond Daniel Craig series continuity. The biggest problem I see with this, obviously, is having a James Bond series lacking James Bond, but I would be interested to see this go down. Perhaps we could have like a spin-off Amazon Prime series or something about this, but I don't really see the films continuing in this direction. But like I said, since Amazon's bought MGM, this might be an interesting direction to go, at least for like a series or something, though I wouldn't want to see like the main 007 James Bond series become a television series, as I don't really think the format would work super well, because I think the film series is very cinematic in nature, so it'd be kind of hard to continue that. But I would be interested to see a little side spin-off series with Nomi or something that might be interesting to keep in this continuity. Another thought I had was to cast a younger James Bond for a longer term story arc. If they're planning on doing like another 16-year long story arc or a long-term story arc like they did with Daniel Craig, why not cast a younger James Bond? And I'm talking like quite a bit younger. So you could maybe follow James Bond in his teen years and stuff to become an agent, have like a film where he's recruited, and kind of see, almost in like a Kingsman-like style, how that series kind of started with its main character being younger and moving on from there. I could see something interesting coming out of that. Though, I think the biggest problem with this is it would take a long time to develop, and it might not be as interesting to start out. So this might not be the best option overall, but it might be something kind of interesting. I know there's stuff like the Silverfin book series, which followed Bond's younger adventures and kind of moved towards his more standard adventures we would see in the films and the books. The third option, the one I think I would be most interested in, is a period piece set during the Cold War. I think if you did a modern James Bond series that was serialized like the Daniel Craig series, it could come off a little bit redundant from the Bond series, and like how much would you take from the Daniel Craig series and how much would be kind of its own thing. Like, would you want to include Vesper and want to include Madeline again? Like, I feel like that might be a temptation if you continue with a more serialized story again. If you set it during the Cold War, you could kind of retread certain ground from the films, but kind of do your own thing. Otherwise, this would be a good way to kind of remix old adventures from like Goldfinger, Dr. No, stuff like that, or try to keep it more on par with the book series, which would be a difficult thing to adapt, as I think James Bond in film versus how he is in the book series is quite a bit different. At least the Ian Fleming ones, later books, kind of tried to adapt the film series more. But I think this would be interesting. I could see like a lot of cool adventures coming out of this Cold War era, and I think it's when Bond is kind of the most, I don't know, the most Bondish. You don't feel like you're stuck with modern adventures as much, like not as much in terms of like modern geopolitics. You can look at stuff from that lens, or even a period piece set a little earlier might be interesting, like before the books, like maybe like Bond doing covert shit during World War II. That might be kind of interesting if they really wanted to go there. But setting Bond in a different time period, I think, would be kind of interesting and would allow for, you know, more interesting adventures. I think there's a lot of interesting things that could be done if you went that route. The fourth option, which I could see them going, and I don't really know I don't really know what they would go with at this point, but I think the fourth style would probably be to go back to that less serialized, more one-off series of films like they did with the previous James Bonds, which might be nice, but at the same time, I think the Daniel Craig series is my favorite just because that serialization is so tight and carries through, and it kind of pays off to the audience if you follow the series closely, whereas the older films, it's like everything kind of restarts the status quo by the start of the next one. So it might become kind of redundant, especially considering we've already had like 20 films in that style. But this is probably a good route you could go to start recasting easier and not have each series of Bond kind of have to start from scratch. You can kind of do what they did before, where there's just a new face playing Bond and people kind of accept it. Where if you like replaced Daniel Craig halfway through his tenure, it'd be kind of weird. So that could be a way to do like less long-term commitments and be more certain that your actor is going to be able to play out the entire story arc that's planned, as each film is kind of going to be able to encompass its own things, because Bond has been known to take hiatuses for legal reasons or whatever the case may be. I think the final option would be to recast Bond and start a new story arc from scratch in the modern day. Effectively do what you did with Daniel Craig in the first place, where you recast Bond, you start making this story arc, and it kind of pulls through and take the Bond character in a different direction. I think this would be the hardest one to do interesting twists with, but I feel like this option might be the most redundant to Daniel Craig's run, which might make it kind of come off as a little boring and odd. But who knows? I mean, these are just 5 options I came up with and kind of just some ideas. Who knows? Maybe they'll go with something else completely different and surprise us. I'm interested to see what the producers do, because they did really make a tight story with the Daniel Craig series, and I think it's really a magnificent series of films, especially something coming from a Hollywood studio. So I'd be very interested to see what happens with the next series of Bond films, but these are just some ideas I came up with. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of talk about these because I've been thinking about this quite a bit since watching the last film, since, you know, with Bond's death, it's a very conclusive end to the James Bond series. So let me know what your thoughts are below. And if you haven't seen it already, I've created a video where I reviewed every James Bond film. That does not include No Time to Die at this point because the video is a couple months old. That'll be linked at the ending of this video. So if you want to check that out, it's in like a video essay format. It's really clean. It took me a lot of time to make, so it would be nice to get more views on that. And I'll be reviewing No Time to Die eventually in the same style I did for the reviewing every Bond video, and I'll throw that after this in the playlist. So if you're interested in that, I'm gonna wait a couple months and probably do it when the Blu-ray's out, give people time to watch the film, but also it just makes it easier to get footage instead of having to like loop the trailer or something, try to piece together my thoughts through basically a trailer. So that'll come out in the next couple months, and thank you guys for watching.